The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of any Grand Lodge nor a pendant body of Freemasonry.
Welcome back to Masonic Shelf Shorts, your monthly dose of Masonic education in 10 minutes or less. I'm one of your hosts, Brad Kohanke.
And I'm your other host, Chris Williams. I'm really impressed that Brad was able to say that without messing it up. Well, we've got with us tonight Brother John Tolbert from San Marcos Lodge, and he's got a talk, a real interesting talk on kind of an offshoot from the Tyler sword. It's called a flamberge, and it's a real interesting talk, and we're looking forward to it.
The term double-edged sword connotes duality, a term that we've spoken of in recent discussions. Duality in the simplest of terms is good and evil, black and white, yin and yang, love and hate, man and woman, material and spiritual, square and compasses, active and passive, wisdom and strength, Jachin and Boaz. Consider this. A sword can be used to destroy and kill with extreme malice, and yet it can also defend and protect the weak and destroy injustice. This is the duality of the sword, hence the term double-edged sword. The Tyler uses a sword to defend our lodge from cowens and eavesdroppers, referring to those, the profane, who would try to partake of our rituals and esoteric knowledge without invitation, and more importantly, without the transformative process of initiation. This is a literal interpretation. The Tyler can also be viewed as representing the protector of the boundary between the outside, the profane world, and the internal or sacred world. The Tyler symbolically represents the internal Tyler, which we use to ward off temptations, subdue our passions, and maintain self-control over our thoughts and actions. However, there's another deep and symbolic interpretation of the Tyler sword. The Tyler sword represents the cherubims, flaming sword referred to in Genesis chapter 3, verse 24, which is as follows. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim, and the flame of a sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Albert Mackey in 1874 states that the Tyler sword should be wavy, mimicking a flame, and here are his comments. A sword whose blade is of a spiral or twisted form is called by the heralds a flaming sword from its resemblance to the ascending curvature of a flame of fire. Until very recently, this was the form of the Tyler sword. Carelessness or ignorance has now in many lodges, remember this is 1874, substituted for it a common sword of any form. The flaming sword of the Tyler refers to the flaming sword which guarded the entrance to paradise, as described in Genesis 3:24. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life, or as Rafal has translated it, I think I pronounced that correct, the flaming sword which revolveth to guard the way to the tree of life. In former times, when symbols and ceremonies were more respected than they are now, remember this is Mackey talking, 1874, when collars were worn and not ribbons in the buttonhole, and when the standing column of the senior warden and the recumbent one of the junior during labor to be reversed during refreshment were deemed necessary for the complete furniture of the lodge. The cavalry sword was unknown as a Masonic implement, and the tiler always bore a flaming sword. It were better if we could get back to the old customs. There are many translations and interpretations of this chapter of Genesis which describes the fall of man and Adam and Eve being driven from paradise. A literal interpretation of this passage in Genesis views the fall of man as the first humans defying the commands of God, and then mankind being punished for their sins. There is another interpretation, which you will find in many Masonic theological and philosophical writings. In these interpretations, the fall of man is described as the moment when humans lost their connection and ability to commune with the great architect. The moment we lost our consciousness of being. Pretty heavy stuff. The moment we let the ego, the self, and the world of form dominate our psyche. The moment we lost consciousness of our soul. The constant chatter of thoughts block our ability to listen to the soul, the spark of God within all of us. The fall of man describes the instant we lost the word. I hope the following biblical passage will come to mind when the tiler carries his flaming sword to the door. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The flaming sword guards the way back to the tree of life, where man can once again connect with his soul, commune with the great architect, and regain the lost word.